that was interesting. So, but it was different. I mean, the technology, I'm sure was, I mean, we didn't have Zoom or Teams.
Yeah, I know. It's because I think occasionally a professor will record a lecture, but for the most part, you show up on Tuesday at 5:30 and the class is live, which I like that. Um, I think it helps me kind of stay on track with my work.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's 1 o'clock. I guess it might be a small group right now.
That's fine.
I know Brianna is at work, so she's probably going to be just listening, kind of quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But Rob is here, and so I'll go ahead and introduce our speaker. So we have Martha Alvarado Anderson, and she's originally from Monterrey, Mexico. She's lived in the US for the past 30 years, and she's had 3 careers in her life: elementary educator, business executive, and now digital librarian archivist. Her BA is in elementary education, and also in business management, but from 2 different schools. And then she has an MLIS from UNCG and a master's in Spanish from the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, which is where she's now employed at the libraries there. And she's been there for 9 years. In 2015, she created the Digital Services Department, which she still manages. At UNCG, she was an A Scholar, which is Academic and Cultural Enrichment. And that's a program, if you haven't heard of it, it's funded by a grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services and the UNCG LIS department. Now she is a 2020 to 2021 Association of Research Libraries Leadership and Career Development Program Fellow. So thank you so much for joining us, Martha.
And thank you so much for having me. So I'm gonna start with sharing my screen. And
Perfect, we can see that.
you can see it? Cool.
Yes.
So before I start my presentation, and thank you, Karen, for that wonderful introduction. More than anything, this is your space. So please ask all of the questions that you might have. Also, I'm not gonna do breakout rooms because the group is small, but see this as our breakout rooms. The topic that was given to me is interviews, applying in a virtual world. And you can tell my name is Martha Anderson. I work at the University of Arkansas Fayetteville Libraries, and I'm the head of the Digital Services Department. For your benefit, I divided this presentation into 3 sections: prior, during, and after applying for a job and interviewing online. So with that in mind, I'm hoping those are the 3 stopping points for us to ask questions. So here is the before section. And then we move this thing. There we go. The basics of being interviewed online. Things that I strongly suggest is test your technology beforehand, prepare in advance, especially some organizations, when you are going to be interviewed, might give you the interview questions beforehand. Not everybody does it, but if you are the lucky one to get the interview questions beforehand, I strongly recommend that you make notes or that you have a script. Remember, you're going to be online. Who's going to be in your space, right? So you could have notes and people don't know that you have your information. If you were in person, you will have a notebook, you know, and have some notes for the things or points that you would like to cover. Wear a professional attire, and that is a very interesting question, you know, like what is professional, right? So right now, most organizations have a Facebook account. So what I would recommend for you is to go ahead and search some events at the library and see how people dress. But remember, even though it's online and you are in the comfort of your own space, to remember that this is still an interview. If undecided, if you don't know what to wear, depending on the rank of the position, at the very minimum, I will wear business casual, but I will not show up, like in the Grammys in your PJs. I mean, no, that's not gonna work. And since you have control of your own environment, limit distractions. I have served in several search committees, and things are gonna happen. There are events or pets that you cannot control. Is not unusual. Every now and then somebody's presenting and you see a cat jumping on somebody's lap, or kids running around. Now, is that a bad thing or a good thing? Well, you're the one who is being interviewed, and you're the one who is being evaluated, assessed. And my point is that the search committee is going to see how you handle stress. For instance, if you didn't plan for your cat to jump on your lap and you get, let's say, a startle, it's not so much what you say, it's just how do you react to that stressor. So my advice always is limit distraction so you are at your best. As far as testing technology, be aware that things can happen, like what time of the year are you gonna be interviewing? Is it gonna be a blizzard in your area? Will you have electricity to begin with? I mean, we all remember the very bad weather in late January. So make sure that your equipment is functional. And if for some reason you're not gonna make it because whatever, let's say you have a valid reason, please ensure that you communicate that to the search committee, even though you might be a little bit embarrassed about it, but it is keeping the search committee waiting is not a cool idea. So those are the things that are very basic, the things that you can control. Then after that, so Karen suggested this question. What type of research should candidates do prior to the interview? At this point, you already know you're getting an interview, right? So how do you prepare? I will ask, what is the interview platform used? Is it WebEx, Teams? Tell me what it is, right? And how will I gain access to it? For some accounts, you need certain permissions, especially if it is an account that belongs to the organization. The beauty of applying virtually is that with Teams and definitely with Zoom, if you know the platform, you can record your presentation. And I'm not saying that you're gonna deliver it that way, but it's great rehearsing, getting to know the things that you will do that are not on your script. And so that way you will know how to modify your behavior, your visuals. Practice the answers to common questions. And again, that's why doing several recordings of your presentation are recommended. Everybody does it, just so you know. And then know who will be in your virtual space, like for instance, the search committee. But at this point, you might know the names and the titles, but you might not have put the names or the information with faces. So get to know who is in that space. It's a very strong personal point to make when you're interviewing, and instead of just asking a question to anybody, to be able to say, okay, Mrs. Parker, what do you think about this? Or doctor, what is your opinion on that? When you can personalize, remember, the magic words for everybody is your own name. So if you have if you could use that one to your advantage, that helps, because that talks about your being personable and your attention to detail. And then the one that in a virtual world, a lot of things can happen. So prepare to improvise. And I will not expect a perfect presentation. I mean, I will aim for that. But so how would you react if something in your presentation went wrong? And I'm talking more about distractors, things that you didn't expect. Like for instance, right now I am at my place, right? So how will I react if this was the interview and somebody starts knocking at the door? Because that's gonna create noise, right? So, but then again, just improvise, and it's the way you react to things, not so much the fact that you had a distraction, because again, we're the ones being interviewed. And then as far as preparing for the actual interview, know the institutional background. And by that, I mean, you shouldn't go to the place you are planning to interview, or in some cases, even move to, let's say, another state, another city, without knowing what it is. You talk a lot about yourself when during the interview you can give some hints that you understand the campus history, you know, how this was this campus created. Review the organizational guiding principles. You should know what's leading the university, but also the library, and how the library is aligning to the campus guiding principles. The guiding principles is what the organization believes, the 10 or 12 things that people are trying to accomplish at a higher level. I will definitely, and some people don't do this, study the library's organizational chart. And for that, you do that, like for instance, where does your position fits within the organizational chart? Who are you gonna be interacting with? Where the people in the search committee fit within the organizational chart? Is one of them going to be your supervisor? Those are some of the nuances of studying the organizational chart. Also, know the campus and the library's demographic statistics. And I'm not talking just about, you know, what is the dominant group and what are the minority groups, but you should know, like, for instance, what's the student ratio? How many full-time students and part-time students they have at X organization? How many faculty members? And that's how many international students? Those are good things to know. And then the thing for you that is very personal to you, yes, everybody wants a job, right? But it would be nice to know what is it that attracts you to the local community, because yeah, you're not gonna live in a vacuum, you're gonna go to work on campus, but would you like your surroundings? And also, if you were able to mention one or two things that are specific to the community, so people know that you have invested yourself into this potential job and that you really want to be there. Like for instance, if you were to apply here to the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, you should know, like, there is a huge museum, you know, like it's called the American Museum of Art, and it's founded by the Walton family, and the Walton family are one of the biggest donors to the University of Arkansas. You should know that there are 3 major companies based in the area, which is the Tyson company, poultry, Walmart, big retailer, and J.B. Hunt, that has to do with transportation, taking products, goods, services to other locations. So something that demonstrates that it's not just a job for a job, that you have researched this area, and that you have a genuine interest in becoming part of the community and adding to it. So that covers the prior, the things that, in my opinion, and it's not prescriptive, the things that you should do before you're actually interviewing. And I will pause at this point to see if you have any questions for me. And remember, this is your space.
I thought of something when you were talking about distractions and backgrounds. Like, I'm at my desk right now and my background is kind of distracting. So when I have an interview, I always try to find a little table that I can like temporarily relocate so that my background is, you know, neutral.
Yes,
So,
go ahead.
When you're finding out about the organizational chart, is that something that like should be accessible on the the website, or is that something you might have to ask?
Yes. And let me see. I might be able to. Okay, let me see. Stop share. I think I prep one for you. Yeah, that is public information, so it should be available for anybody. Okay, so do you see ours?
Oh, wow.
So, so you should be able to see it even for your own library, University of North Carolina at Greensboro Libraries, organizational charts, and it tells you the positions and who's there. Also, you should be able to see the vacancies. So let's say that you were applying for this position, usage services. I mean, we know that Matthew Kelly is there, but you're applying for this position. So now you can see that there are 4 ADs and that the position ultimately reports to research and learning. But you can see the line all the way through. And who else is in your division?
Okay, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, no, so I really believe that that I always do, if it is something or an organization that I really want to be part of, the organizational chart tells you a lot of things that you might not have considered in the past.
Any other question? I do. So like with public libraries, sometimes you cannot find the director or assistant director or the individual branch managers, because especially if there's like a high turnover, is it appropriate to call the library and ask them just directly who are, to whom are the people I'm going to be speaking with? Because sometimes with HR, you don't know who all the people are in the library, and their information isn't always readily available online. So is it appropriate to just call the libraries themselves and ask who does what, and if that's not listed online?
I will ask it, I mean, we're in the business of research and providing answers. So, and it should be public information. I mean, you're not asking for, you can just say, hey, I'm a library student and I'm researching organizational charts. May I please have access to yours?
Right.
And I think it's fair, What I would like to see for people to do more is to understand that this is a two-way street. Not because you are the one looking for a job, that doesn't mean that you're the one always giving the answers. You have the right to ask questions because you would like to know what is it that you're signing up to, right? Especially if you're going to sign up a contract. I would like to know, like with the organizational chart, you will have access to how many vacancies are. So what about if you're going to be hired and there are 10 vacancies? That tells you what situation that organization is in. And perhaps that you might be asked to do more, perhaps not necessarily. Mm-hmm. So I think those are fair questions.
All right, thank you.
You are most welcome. And if I don't see any question, I'm gonna move to during, okay, so right now you are being interviewed. And this is and this is just me. Do you remember how Allison talked about taking care of yourself? I'm just gonna let you know about the trick that I do is have something that is personal near your area that belongs to you, that suits you, that is a relaxing kind of thing. And I'm not talking about a cup of coffee. A lot of times it's just a plush animal or a note that somebody left me that is obviously uplifting, just to make sure that you are nice, calm, and collected. That seems to work. So I'm just sharing that one with you as an idea. And then the question is like, okay, this is an interview. How are you to present yourself? And like I told you, I have been in several search committees. Right now, I'm in the search committee for the Dean of Libraries. Presenting yourself is not an option. I mean, people are trying to get to know you. So to do a presentation where you just see your name is unacceptable because people didn't get to know you. You'll be surprised. Some people don't want to have their image on the screen. So it should be an expectation. And then use professional body language. Goes back to the point that you are still being interviewed. So slang is not gonna work. Now, if you're like me who have told in the past and you're gonna use your hands, it's not a bad thing, but just be aware that that is something that you have. And again, if I'm applying for a reference job, and we know that more reference librarians are instructors, it's not gonna be a big deal. But I know that if I am applying, let's say digital services, the position that I have right now, not a lot of people teaches. So they might find that a little bit distracting. So just control your image. Build a report. So by now you already know who is in the search committee. And again, try to mention them by name. It helps if you know what they do and what their titles or job duties, how those relate to the position you're applying to, and start making the connections. And the one that is the most important, just be authentic, be yourself. Although a lot of professionals advise a lot of role playing, put your best face, or you should do some of that with caution, not to change who you are too much, because you want to be happy in your own skin. I don't want to be role playing and code switching all day. So yes, I want to work with you, but this is what you get. This is me. And you want it to be a great match. Some questions to ask. Evidently, some of the questions are going to be specific to the position you are applying for. But there are some, like if you're applying for any job right now, there are two things that you should consider: the pandemic and how the organization is dealing with it. And the other one is the fact that we have some DEI issues in the profession, and the fact that there is social unrest in our country. So those are big, big issues in libraries right now. The questions that I will ask, in addition to the ones that are specific to the position, is like, why is this position important to your organization? And you'll be surprised. Some people will tell you, well, it's a new thing that we're trying. We're going to try it 1 or 2 years and see where it goes. Well, caution, right? I mean, for how long do you want to work in that area? And it might work with your plans, but you'll be surprised the information that you get by asking those questions. There is no way that you can go to an interview and not ask the question, considering current social changes, unrest in our country, what is your DEI plan? And it doesn't matter if you're not a person of color. Everybody should be concerned with that. I mean, like, what are we doing? I will ask, can you talk about the statistical demographics of your staff? On that one, I will go to race. I mean, I really would like to know, I mean, if they have a DEI plan and they're working for, to have a staff that is more representative of the community they serve, and then prove it. Tell me how many Latino people you have working for you, Asian, and so forth. Especially if you have an international program, shouldn't we do those kind of things. I would ask to the audience, the search committee, what is it that you like about working at X library, right? In a way of asking the inverse, but in a positive manner, is there anything you dislike about working at library, at X library? You should know what are the 3 main priorities that library is working on at this specific time. If you were to ask me what the University of Arkansas is working at this particular point, the pandemic and returning to work and how we're gonna onboard ourselves. We are aware of the DI issues at our community, and the campus overall is going over DI training. And there are also DI programs per school department, and there is one at the libraries. So those are a must. Another thing that, let me see, one that is huge for the libraries, and hopefully that somebody discloses that to you. Right now, we're going over a major renovation. So the main building, we have 5 libraries. The main building has 4 floors. 2 of those floors are closed right now because it's a major renovation. So your question should be, okay, with that in the pandemic, if I were there, how will my work day will look like? Am I gonna be working hybridly? Is it gonna be mainly virtual? What are my options? Because you're hiring, right? But what is the plan? When will the renovation will be done? And then the next 2 are very important. If I get selected, will I have a mentor? And you want a mentor regardless if you have an external mentor, because this inside mentor will show you the way, how to navigate the building, from personalities to titles to goals, what committees you should join. And how does, let's assume for a moment that the organization has a mentoring program. How does the mentoring program works? I mean, does it really, or is it just a front, right? I mean, we say we do, but no, we really don't have one. You want to know all of those, the answers to those questions. One thing that is very, very, very important, and I get it. I was there where, yes, I need a job, just please hire me, right? But remember, you are also interviewing, and this is your time to get to learn about the organization. While I am asking my questions, I will be very cognizant and observant of behaviors. You know, like, how is this search community reacting to my questions? And do they seem happy, glad to be there? Do they appear tired? And if they are tired, why? You know, those are the things to observe, because if it is, okay, so everybody's gonna say, yeah, we're a very friendly organization. But does that show? Or is it just something you say because it's the nice thing to say? And before closing the interview, I would not leave the interview without getting the answers to my questions. And so let's say that you went to the interview, you have a certain feeling, but shouldn't you know, or ask, can you talk about the search process workflow after the interview in so many words? When we are done, so we made this time, you gave me my time, I give you mine. So what happens next? How do I get to know whether I am hired or not? Obviously, if you get hired, you're gonna get a, you know, an offer. But if you don't, wouldn't it be nice if somebody told you, I mean, thanks for your time, but we went on a different direction. For me, if somebody is able to tell me that I didn't get the position, but somebody else did, right? Sometimes they say, well, if you have additional questions, please let me know. I will take advantage of it. I will say at some point I will contact that person and I said something to the extent, I understand I didn't get the position. I thank you for your time. Can you please tell me what I can do better next time? Just to learn from the situation. And this one is very important. Once you know how they're gonna contact you one way or another, is thank them for their time. Search committee is obviously volunteer work, and people invest themselves into these committees. So thank them for their time, tell them that you appreciate that they know that they're going above and beyond their regular duties to serve in this committee and to help the organization to get a great person for X position. So that one is very important. So before I go to after, anything that you would like to explore more about what I said, or I don't know, any questions you might have? Or something that you might want to ask, because remember, again, this is your space. I mean, this is an ideal space to ask questions. Something that you would like to ask but don't know how, or if it is proper. I see somebody talking, but I think the mic is muted.
How about that? Can you hear me now?
Yes, Michelle.
Great. Just to jump back to what you were talking about a library's DEI plan. I've been kind of wondering how this might come up in interviews, and it seems like, I mean, is that kind of I don't want to say a code word, but is that really how libraries are talking about social unrest? I mean, I know that I would be very unhappy working with or for, an organization that skewed, heavily on one side of the political spectrum, and not, I'm sure that, whichever spectrum we're talking about, but I've kind of been wondering how to ask these questions in an interview. And would you start with this DEI plan? And then how do you probe a little bit if you don't really understand the answer?
Okay. No, and that is great. And I like that you say probe a little bit. I would just really like the reference question, right? You don't get the answer and you keep asking. As
Right.
long as you are genuine about what you're doing and you're not asking because you're just grumpy, you're asking because you really want to help. If you frame it, I want to help our field. I want to help librarianship. So I would like to know what we're doing. At the national level, I'm also a member of the ALA DI Assembly. The conversation is in all organizations. If you're not talking about DI, you're really not talking, because it is a well-known fact, that there are issues in our profession, and it is my opinion that we're going to social change. It's not just change for the sake of change, that we're going through social change in our country. And that is gonna take time. It's not gonna happen overnight. But so what is the organization that you're trying to belong to at this specific point? Are they still denying it, thinking that these issues are gonna go away? Or your organization is one of those who they know that change is coming, that is inevitable, and we might as well embrace it? Asking the DEI question for me is not any different than asking about the pandemic. We know that we all have been changed by the pandemic. The way not only the way we interact outside the job, but it has changed our jobs. I mean, look at this. We're doing this presentation virtually, right? Any other time I will be in Greensboro doing this kind of work. So it has changed. So now that you know that these big changes, events have happened, what are we doing about it? Because changes, modifications are going to be expected of you, whether you're looking for a job or whether you already have a job. Like I was talking in some point in the presentation, Re-onboarding is a huge conversation at the U of A. So at some point, whether it is 2-3 months, we're all gonna come back to work on site mostly, not everybody, because there are some positions that can be done remotely. But in that process, I mean, we were working remotely for over a year. We learn and unlearn so many things. So how are we gonna do business now? Because we were changed by the pandemic. What would you keep? What would you add? What would you remove? So those are fair questions. So going back to the DI question, I would just ask it. I'll just be sincere and I say that I just want to know. And if they ask you, well, why do you want to know? I mean, I doubt it, but if they ask you, what do you want to know? And you say, well, that is something that is present in our field. And I just would like to know how we're embracing it. Still positive.
Oh, sure, sure. I would also think that in a university setting, a way to get at it might be talking about the students and how they, I don't know, how to interact with students and, about that.
Yeah, and to your point, librarianship is all about service. So, I mean, you have a valid point, I want to know how to serve our community better.
Right. Excellent. Thanks very much. Appreciate that.
You are most welcome. Anyone else? I mean, this is your time, like a question that you might want to ask and don't know how. All right, so if there are no more questions, we're gonna go to the after portion, but there is another time to ask questions. So you're done with the interview. You already know that in 2 weeks, they might contact you to let you know one way or another if you got the job. I will follow up so let's say that the interview was today. I will wait 1 or 2 days, but not more. And I will follow up, and the follow-up looks like this. I will write to the search committee. You can write them as a group or individually. It's always like 4 or 5 people anyway. And just, again, thank them one more time. And I will offer something like, if there is anything else you would like me to answer, please feel free to ask a question. And I think that is fair, because still you demonstrate that you have interest. Also, you don't know what finalist you are, so you might be the second choice, and although it might not feel right. So what happens if, like Allison mentioned, the first candidate removes themselves from the search because they found a job something else? So it is important to know it, like, I remember we were going to go this way, but I remember Michelle said that she was very interested. So let's see. So just leave doors open. Another one is conduct your own evaluation. So for me, every interview is an opportunity to learn. So I used to just reflect a little bit on the experience, what worked, what didn't work, what would I have done differently, if any? And what is it that I learned? For instance, I mean, what was the mood of the room? Did the people seem happy? Do I want to work there? I mean, were the questions abrasive? I mean, were people warm? Is this the kind of people I would like to work with? I mean, yeah, you're signing up for this. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this one, and it says have a support group. This is what I would recommend, and it worked for us. When I graduated from UNCG, the library market was very saturated. I mean, in fact, I ended up moving out of state. But in library school, I used to have a group of friends that we always hung out together. And obviously, we were all looking for a job at the same time. And of course, I mean, I had my own family as a support group, but we created a group where we met about once a week. And then we will talk about the positions that were out there. And sometimes you'll be surprised. Not everybody was applying for the same position. We were all looking for jobs, but we had different specialties. So let's say my friend wanted a job as a business librarian, and sometimes she will miss a posting. But I saw it, so I will tell her about that position, right? And then eventually we all found jobs, right? But life is kind of funny. I mean, who's gonna find a job first in the group? So what we did is like, when somebody went to an interview, it's almost like we all went to the interview, because we will, I said, what are you gonna do if they ask you this? What are they gonna do? You're gonna do if they ask you X, Y, Z, or sometimes she will say, well, I feel funny asking about salary if the salary wasn't stated. And getting to know who you ask that question, because a lot of times it's not even the search committee, but there is somebody within the organization who should answer that question. So that was very powerful for us. And those are relationships that I have kept even 10 years later after graduation. But that support group, you know, like if one of my friends went to the interview and these were in person at the time, she will come back and told us about it. You know, this is what I would have done differently. I thought I was ready, but I wasn't, or I thought I was ready, and yeah, I mean, it was a little bit too much. I cannot reemphasize relentless preparation, because you should do your best based on the job that you want. But even if you don't get it, you learn from it. And I assure you, the next time you go for an interview, you will nail it, because you already practice. Not only did you did your pre-recordings and everything, you already practice with actual people asking you questions and you're responding. And so back to the DI question that Michelle had. So let's say that you ask your question to an actual search committee. How did they feel like? And if the question didn't feel good, what can you do differently? So those are the things that I will be doing, always learning from the situation, because for me in librarianship, even then when I knew the market was saturated, it's like, it's not if I am going to get a job, it's when I get the job. So just make sure that when you get the job, that is the job that you want. I mean, because you are looking for a job, that doesn't mean that you don't have rights. You do have rights. You should. I mean, for me, it's extremely important to like the environment. When I reflected on myself, I knew that I like an academic environment. My eyes just glisten whenever I put a foot on campus. I just love the environment of a university. I like the environment around the university. All of the offerings, good and bad. I mean, you might not like bars, but I just like college life and what it has to offer. So I knew that that's what I needed. I needed an area that I felt comfortable with, that I could be me. And yes, since my background is in business, the fact that Walmart was one of the main companies in the area was huge for me, because I knew in a way I could use some of my business background, and that business was not going to have a negative connotation. They're the biggest donor. How can you not like retail? And when I came to the University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, they were working on a huge donation that the Walton family has given them for, if I'm not mistaken, was $1 billion. So people with a business mind will be welcome. That is not the case in all universities. Some universities frown on business ideas. So knowing that, it was helpful for me. And this is the section I have for Q&A. And again, feel free to unmute and ask any questions you might have, even if I didn't speak about